Hi, everybody. Welcome back to this episode of Unboxed Healing. I'm Meredith. I am a licensed counselor in New Jersey, licensed in 6 states now, and shifting into more of this educational space. And really excited to be wrapping up this year of this, our first year of this show, and just been enjoying having these amazing conversations with like-minded therapists, thinking outside of the box. We have Kimia with us today, and super excited to talk to her about the intersectionality between race and body image. And so I will pass it over to Kimia and let her introduce herself.
Thank you so much. I'm Kimia. I'm a licensed clinician in New York. I work at My Therapy NYC. I'm the clinical supervisor and clinical director there. I predominantly see women and women of color. I run a women's group. So this topic is really, really important to me personally and professionally, and I'm so excited to talk about it.
Awesome. We usually get into our specialty for a reason. Like there's a reason that we become therapists usually. There's reason that we then end up like getting more specific with the clients that we work with. So can you tell us a little bit about like how you got here?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. And I totally agree. I think like we become therapists for a lot of personal reasons and lived experiences. I became therapist for similar reasons. I'm Iranian. I was born in Iran. I'm Iranian American by citizenship. I grew up in Europe. So my journey of identity and who I am and the intersect of that and my body image issues, all of my lived experiences, trauma, and my race really has made me who I am as a therapist today. All of my trainings are pretty much in this area. And I think because of my own lived experiences, I also know exactly the emotions and feelings attached to these topics. So when I sit with clients, I feel like we can really understand each other. I self-disclose with my clients to normalize their experiences. I join them in their emotions around it. So I think having a lot of personal lived experiences as therapists and practicing through that lens can only bring you closer to your clients.
Totally. Yeah, and right, we were just having a conversation about I know I'm so grateful that we're shifting towards this place in the therapeutic landscape that like, oh yeah, it's okay for actually it's better for therapists to be human. Like no one wants to meet with a robot therapist anymore. I don't know that they ever did, but who knows? And so right, like being able to bring our lived experience, it makes sense, especially what we're learning about co-regulation and feeling validated and normalized and all the things that we learn about. So this topic specifically is really close to home, like you said, professionally and personally.
Yeah, absolutely. And I totally agree. Don't, I personally have never responded to therapists that didn't self-disclose. Thinking about my own therapy journey, that was never a good thing for me. And that is why I don't want to do that. And I'm sure there are clients that respond to that as well, that type of therapy. But again, like as a therapist, you gotta be who you are and be authentic to your identities and personality and bring that into the room, and you're gonna have clients that respond to that and see you for that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, most of us know about systematic oppressions and the role of systems in place that create racism, internalized racism, generational trauma, and that how that shows up in our bodies and make our bodies very unsafe, and creates this disconnect between the individual and their physical body. I think going back to intergenerational trauma, so much of us experience our trauma inside our body. It's coded in our genes, and generation after generation going through systematic racism and oppression. Um, it's passed down from your great grandparents to you today, and it's going to continue to be passed down until someone stops that generational trauma at some point. But unfortunately, under the climate that we live in right now, that's maybe wishful thinking that it will end. But the more awareness that we have around it, it's better, it's easier to manage it. And I think the experience of generational trauma with systematic oppression and racism is a big one. Again, like when we store that type of trauma inside our body, the body automatically becomes a very unsafe place to exist in. And it becomes very hard for individuals to want to stay in it and have a positive relationship with the body when it's a point of trauma, when it's a point of hurt and pain. And it only makes sense to want to escape it and not be in it. And that already creates a big disconnect from your physical body. When you don't view it as something positive, then that means that you view it as something negative and you don't particularly like it. You don't feel good in it. And that's just one part of this generational trauma that is a result of oppression and systematic racism. The other part of it is obviously when you feel othered by society, by the country that you live in, by your community. You feel lesser than because, and going back to the first point of this early childhood experiences, from your very first experiences being in society and being aware of yourself, you already feel othered. You already society and people around you will tell you things unintentionally or intentionally, will tell you things about yourself that will over time make you feel othered and lesser than and completely different. Um, as a child in school, it might be about your hair color. It might be about the food that you're eating. It might be about your accent. Children don't really understand racism at a very young age, but they know that someone is different than who they are and what they see in their own family of origin. And they might point those things out. And that individual who's at the receiving end of these comments will start thinking that they're different and that it sets them apart from the rest of their community and creates a lot of isolation. As a personal example, I grew up in Europe. I lived in 5 different countries. I speak different languages. I have an accent in probably every language that I speak. And that has always made me feel lesser or othered in every country that I've lived in, regardless of even if I could speak the language. Because someone will say something, even if it's unintentional, they're just noticing that you have an accent, but that will impact me negatively. I will immediately be self-conscious about myself. I'm immediately aware of myself and not in a positive way. And that creates a disconnect from myself and where I live and my peers, and again, like the community that I'm part of. I grew up predominantly in a city that most people around me looked different. They were taller, they had blue eyes, lighter hair color. I always stood out physically in that way. And that experience, it doesn't even have to be negative or positive. It's just knowing that you're different and that you stand out from the rest of the
Mm.
people. And people don't necessarily need to tell me anything negative for me to feel that. But just me looking around, I can already tell that I'm different. And that already creates isolation. That teaches me that I'm different. Again, it doesn't have to be negative or positive necessarily, but you feel isolated and othered. And then you become a lot more aware of your hair color. You become a lot more aware of your accent or your height, your weight, your eye color. Things that a lot of people might not even think about, especially white people. It's not something that they might think twice about or be so self-conscious or constantly think about it every day. But the experience of a person of color is that you're constantly thinking about your body and your physical appearances 24/7. It's always on your mind. The moment you wake up, you have to think about, unfortunately, a lot of us think about like, how do I do my hair today? What do I wear? Do I need to cover parts of my body? Do I need to wear a different type of clothes? Because also the experience of a person of color and their body is that you're either invisible or hypersexualized, and very people focus on your physical appearances and talk about it and mention it. And a lot of the days that you have to decide, do I need to hide my body or do I need to make myself visible to the world? And the fact that you have to wake up and think about that, and that defines your day, it's just a very, very sad and isolating experience.
And sounds exhausting.
Very exhausting. Very, and this is all of your life, from childhood to, I think for the probably, I know for me, it's going to be for the rest of my life.
You know, it's so interesting, even coming into talking about this topic as a white person, body image to me it felt feels different than the way you've described it here. Because for me, my experience has always been body image about like, oh, being too fat,
Yeah.
being bullied as chubby as a kid. And it's just like light bulbs going off for me as you're talking about like identity, like existing in this body as a person, period, all around.
Absolutely. And I think stereotypically, we all think about, especially like working with clients. I know even though I'm a person of color, I've fallen into this trap of like when my clients bring up the topic of body image, I automatically think about, oh, they're going to talk about their weight. And that is just like one small part of body image and our relationship to our body, especially when it comes to clients or people with any sort of marginalized identity. That is very similar for people in the LGBTQ community. And any marginalized community has a very different experience to their physical body for so many different reasons and outside of size.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's when I did my training in psychedelic assisted therapy, we did a social mapping
Mhm.
exercise, and it is really interesting to look at like places where we're privileged and places where we're marginalized, right? Because even though, even like bringing in other identities, right? Like I am a queer person, but however, I'm straight passing. Like someone might not know that if they just meet me. So there's that piece of it too, of right, like you're saying, how am I presenting to the world? How is the world perceiving me? And how much mental space is that taking up from moment
Absolutely.
to moment?
Absolutely. And that's such an important point as well. I think having privileges, even around your race and body, I think I can never, even though I am a person of color and I've experienced these things that I've just talked about personally, but I know that I still have privileges that other people within certain communities don't, because I also have green eyes and I can pass in those ways. And my experience still can be, it can't, there are other people out there that their experiences are a lot harder than someone like me, even within marginalized communities. And that also goes back to colorism and cultural standards. I think from, again, a very young age, even your own parents, your own race, your own culture defines how you feel about yourself. And for me, I know that growing up, everyone commented on my green eyes, even within my own community, because it's rare. And they always like said it in such a positive way. And that tells me that yes, there is a lot of privilege in that. And And it became something that I also focused on so much. It became my strength almost, something as insignificant as an eye color. Like, why is a child thinking about all these things? Why is that a topic of discussion in that way? But it is true, especially like I always think about families that have multiple kids and maybe they favor one child's physical attributes to another. It already tells all the kids of the same family that one is better than the other. Or the way that families of certain cultures talk about food, talk about body, talk about what to do and what not to do. And they have such an emphasis on your physical attributes. You need to do your hair, you need to brush your hair, you need to have straight hair, you need to eat X, Y, and Z, don't eat X, Y, and Z, don't say this, don't say that. I know in my culture, in Iranian culture and Persian culture, people are very comfortable talking about other people's bodies. Your grandparents will talk about your body. It's something very common. So at a very young age, people are already talking about your body, and it's a topic of discussion. And your grandma will tell you like, "Oh, you look very skinny," or "Have you gained weight?" "Oh, what's going on with your hair?" It's very, very common. Um, so again, like it's so hard not to feel negative about yourself or be hyper aware of your physical body. Again, with I think like the older generations, there maybe wasn't so much talk about mental health in this way. So obviously,
Right.
there's just lack of education and awareness around these topics. I know for a fact that my grandma, when she says these things, she has no ill intention. It comes
Right.
from such a loving place, but also very, very damaging at the same time. I also think it comes from, again, going back to the first point, it's systematic racism and oppression that they have experienced.
Right.
And they had to survive. They had to blend in. And they had to hide themselves in a lot of ways in order to quite literally survive and
Right.
and be part of society. And they will continue to pass down those beliefs and values to generation after generation. It's all they know.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So, from your perspective, how does beauty standards tie into all this?
It's a big part of all of this. I think every culture, when we think about it, they have their own beauty standards. And I love that we hold on to those values and hold on to those cultural norms and beauty standards. But thinking about how that translates in our society, it doesn't really. And you still feel othered, especially if you feel good um, in your own community, in your own culture, and you feel really, really confident. You step out of your door and you walk into the city, you immediately will feel bad about yourself because once again, all the things that you hold dear to you, and it comes from your cultural values, might not necessarily be the norm, and you'll still feel othered. You'll still feel lesser than in some ways. You can think about these things in like one of the most common places that this comes up, especially for younger adults, is dating. And how you being a person of color, you might not always necessarily be the first pick for stereotypical beauty standards and what the other gender or person that people that you're attracted to are choosing. I know for me, if I used to many years ago, walk into a very stereotypical example, walk into a bar, and I identify as straight, most men might still pick blonde girls, size 0, 5'10", versus me, I'm 5'1", dark hair, and I don't look like the norm or the beauty standards that we still pick. So again, like it shows up in so many different ways. And I might still, on a good day, I love how I look. I love being short. I love having dark hair. And I love all these things about myself. But on also a bad day or a vulnerable place, it shows up in a really, really negative way for me and makes me feel lesser than.
You brought up, the way to break the cycle is break the cycle, right? Like at some point, if someone somewhere along the line doesn't change something, right, then nothing changes. But what are your thoughts about that? Like what does that actually look like in practice, in real life?
Good question. I don't have a perfect answer for it, but I can tell that like going through the experiences I've gone through, if I have kids, I know the things to not teach and the things to teach. And that only comes from me doing my own healing as well. And that is the only way you can break the generational trauma and cycles. Um, Otherwise, I'm going to say similar things that my grandma told my mom and my mom told me, and I'm going to say similar things to my kids, and the cycle will continue. So, in order for me to break that, it will have to start from my own healing. It will have to start from me educating myself. And when I have kids, making sure that they don't experience what I experienced, at least from the family of origin. And I think it's also preparing them in a very, very real way of what to expect in life outside of your home when you step into your class with your peers, with friends, dating, kind of like preparing them. I think something that a lot of loving parents do, they want to protect them from the hurt and they want to make sure that they're not exposed to a lot of these things at a young age, which I'm all for it. I totally understand it. And at the same time, I feel like if you don't prepare them, then they will learn these things, they will experience them anyway. And it will have a much bigger impact on them because they have no idea what is going on and they're confused and feel really, really unsafe and isolated and don't even know what to talk about, who to talk about this with. So I think like if you can normalize these experiences for kids and for yourself and for anyone that you talk to, one of the reasons that I love this topic and I talk about it with my clients and I'm so open about my own experiences is because you want to normalize it. You want to say like, yeah, it makes sense that you feel this way. This is why I know the feeling. I know why this happens. And it's awful. And you just really want to normalize the experience so they don't feel like there's something wrong with them. You want to kind of like take the shame that we hold inside and thinking that there's something wrong with us, take that from the inside, take it out and make it toward like into anger towards systematic racism, oppression, governments. Put it towards them versus internalizing as something that is wrong with you and holding shame.
Wow. Yeah, that's really powerful.
Yeah, I think that's an important part because I think all of this makes us feel like there's something wrong with us. We need fixing. We are broken.
Right, is like normalizing diversity in general and like having a conversation about that because kids are unfiltered, they notice differences, they're going to say it. So if it's like just they expected and normal, like yeah, that's everyone's different, that's what makes us special, or whatever the conversation is.
And also teaching your kids, like what not to say, right? Like if you hear someone having a different accent or doesn't talk the same way as you don't need to say anything about it. Right? Like there are ways of like if you're curious about this person's race or where they're coming from, there are different ways of asking that. Like you can teach kids curiosity versus making statements and pointing things out. I think that's a biggest thing that you can teach of like if something stands out to you, you can be curious about it in these ways without making statements about it or assumptions or pointing it out.
You do like some groups and
Yeah.
women's group and stuff. What are some other ways that you work with clients, specifically coming in with this topic?
Good question. I really try to move away from binary places of like we need to love our body or I hate my body. One of I think like the body positivity movement has been an incredible movement with so much great impact. And I think on the flip side of it, it tells you that you have to love your body regardless of how you feel about it. And that alone can create a lot of pressure and more shame.
True.
Um, that like, why can't I like my body? Why can't I feel good? Why can't I get to that place where I love my body? And my work, whether it's for myself and my clients or people in my life, it's like getting to a neutral place where you're just okay with it. It doesn't have to be like, I love my body. I love everything about it. Every day I feel good, or I absolutely hate my body and everything about it. It can be that, like, you know what? It is what it is. Some days I'm gonna hate it. Some days I'm gonna love it. Some days I'm gonna be okay with it. Some days maybe I don't even think about it. There are parts of my body that I will always dislike, and that's okay. There is acceptance around that. I don't need to fix it. I don't need to love it. I don't need to change it. It is what it is. And that's where I want people to be. And I think that is more of a realistic place to be. As a therapist, I think it's really, really important to understand when someone, and I said this earlier, when someone tells you about their body image issues, don't make assumptions about it. Because it's a topic that a lot of us know. Pop culture talks about it now, social media, there's a lot of awareness, but know that every client's experience with their body is very, very unique to them and their identities and gender, sexual orientation, race, ethnicity, age, all of that. So really treat it as a very, very individualized experience for clients and ask a lot of curiosity questions to understand exactly what the root cause of this relationship with their body is and all the external factors that impact their relationship with their body and what parts of it show up in a negative way into their day-to-day life and that needs healing. So really focusing on that topic in that way and understanding all parts of it. I think that's really important. That's something that it's not so much about race, but just the topic of body image issues, especially for therapists. I think a lot of people that have experiences of any sort of physical or sexual abuse, even the word body might be incredibly triggering. So
Mm.
just being very, very mindful of how you talk about body and how you invite them to stay in it. And just assume that it's very, very unsafe. And find creative ways of even saying the word body, but not using that exact word. A lot of the times when I do somatic work, I don't really say like what's coming up in your body. I always say like let's check inward and see what's coming up inside. To be very mindful of that. That word alone can be incredibly triggering for people. And physical abuse is just one reason. People with eating disorders, so many reasons why that word might be very triggering. So just being very, very mindful of how you use it and with who you use it. And the other thing that it's a very, very small, a minor tool, but a lot of the times we compliment people using their body. Like, oh my God, you look great. Have you lost weight? Oh my God, you've lost weight. You look amazing. Your skin looks amazing. Your hair looks great. And I think trying to just compliment people without using their actual body parts can be a really, really healing tool. Because what if they have a bad hair day and you don't compliment their hair next day or next time you see them? They're going to take that as like there's something wrong with my hair. Or what if they can't maintain their body weight and they gain and then you don't compliment them? They're going to take that as like, well, look, this person didn't compliment me today. That must be because I've gained weight, or I didn't do my hair today, or I'm not wearing makeup today. So I always like try to, if I really want to compliment someone's physical appearance, I might really latch onto clothing items or things that it has nothing to do with the actual body parts that they cannot always control.
That's great advice. Yes. No, we see that all the time that and it just perpetuates the shame about about body and self. And yeah,
It's just
yeah,
it just brings attention to, again, someone's body. What we're trying to do is remove attention from people's physical body and body parts. And you can still compliment people if you want to. There's so many
yeah,
ways, but try to be creative with it.
yeah, and like really separating worth, right, from like size of body, like, you know, skin color, skin clarity, right?
Yeah.
There's so much of our identity that we like tie into those things. And so if we can work towards like, this is a body, it's the body I'm living in, and I'm grateful for its functions and like, how's it functioning? You know, that feels very different than like, oh, you lost weight. You look great.
Exactly, exactly. Absolutely. You can even compliment someone, oh, you look very confident today. I love that. I feel this confidence coming through. Like you can compliment people and give them verbal affirmation in so many ways outside of their physical body and physical, even physical appearance.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I just try to stay away from it altogether, like commenting on this book, because it's true. You never know what people are attached to, right? Like when it comes to appearance.
You just never know what that can trigger in someone, what
Right.
experiences or what trauma points it's going to bring up.
Yeah, very true.
I think the best thing that has worked for me personally, and I constantly tell my clients, and they tell me that it works for them. Hopefully, they're being honest about it. I trust them, but I think it's genuinely the normalizing of this experience and like removing the shame and just saying, like, and kind of like radically accepting that as a person of color, this will always be part of your experience, and that's okay, and find ways to live with it instead of trying to constantly fix it. And try to constantly come up with solutions to feel better and to look a certain way or for people to accept you. I always say, like, if someone's not gonna accept me, I've stopped trying to make other people accept me. And that obviously easier said than done. That has come from years of me trying to make people like me and accept me and kind of like giving up at a certain point as I've gotten older. But
Yeah.
I think like there's so much relief and radical acceptance around your experience. And it's made me feel really, really empowered of like, if you might not like me, you might respond to me differently, and that's okay. You and I don't need to coexist with each other or be friends or be in the same circle of people. And that's totally okay. I will find people that will respond to me for who I am. And there are people out there. And it's just kind of like shifting your mindset from like trying to convince everyone of your worth and make everyone like you, and kind of like focusing on people that really like you. And it might be a smaller group, but when you find that group of people that really respond well to you, even though it might be smaller than like the majority, it feels really, really good.
Yeah. It's making me think of actually just the importance of having, um, you know, BIPOC spaces, queer spaces, right? And just really how important it is to be able to choose to be in a group setting with maybe, not folks who have had the same experience, but at least like a shared
Totally.
experience in that way.
Absolutely. I think just being around people that have similar experiences is already so healing. You talk about things that no one else would ever understand unless you're talking exactly to the person that has experienced very similar things. And it just
Yeah.
like brings you so much joy and relief and closeness to someone else in those ways. So I think that one of the reasons that I love my women's group is exactly that. There's so much shared experiences and shared identities that is incredibly healing. It's healing for me being in my women's group. And it's just like everyone comes together and shares very similar stories, and everyone leaves feeling very, very normalized and accepted.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. And you know what? Like I think it applies to in those spaces where I have seen people feeling othered even within those spaces. So I think like your advice about like normalizing different experiences, even if it's like siblings that have like through the same exact thing, right? Like it can they can have experienced it very differently. So it extends so much into this what you're talking about, like acceptance, understanding, and normalizing that everyone's experience is their own.
Absolutely. And there's also no competition. There's no like
Yeah.
I have experienced more because of X, Y, and Z, but it's always just the mutual understanding that like yes, experienced similar things, but the feelings attached to it and the actual experience and the impact of it is different. And that is just you can't debate. That's not up for debate. It's just an acceptance of that reality.
How can people find you if they want to connect, if they're in New York City, want to join your women's group? Like, how can
Yeah.
people find you?
Absolutely. You can directly email me. It's my first name, Kimia, Kimia, at mytherapynyc.com. And you can also email us at info@mytherapynyc.com, especially if you want to join my women's group or work with me individually. I do individual therapy, EMDR, do couples therapy. So different services if you want to get in touch with me, that's how you can. You can find me with my name on LinkedIn. Would love to connect with you, especially different therapists, different providers. So those are really the ways to get in touch, either email or LinkedIn. You can find me on Instagram under It's Kimia's World. So that's my personal Instagram. And our practice's Instagram is My Therapy NYC. So that's a big one as well.
Great. Thank
Yeah.
you so much for being here today. Is there anything else that we left out?
Just be kind to yourself. It doesn't mean that you need to love yourself every day or dislike yourself, but just be kind and be gentle with yourself. If you're having a bad day, it's okay to have a bad day. It's okay to tell yourself, I'm having a bad day. I don't feel good in my skin today, and that's okay. You don't need to fix it. You don't need to get out of it. You're just going to have a bad day, and that's totally fine.
Yeah.
Thank you. See you
Okay.
later.
Take
Take care.
care.
Bye.
Bye.